Alright, so we're going to talk about a little bit about gravelording in this series. It might end up being two parts instead of one part, depending on how long this goes. So today I want to just talk about, before we get into the meat of all this, the differences between gravelording and necromancy. So, in traditional necromancy, the necromancer goes into the realm of the dead to get assistance, aid, answers, etc. He is a psychopomp in the fact that he goes from the realm of the living into the realm of the dead. All his powers and everything are gained from the dead and those realms, but he does not work for the dead. He works for himself or whatever demon he works for. The Gravelord is a little bit different. So Gravelord, through many trials and tests, is an advocate for a particular graveyard or graveyards. He works for the dead. He works for their interests. He puts himself at risk to make sure that the dead are able to get what they need. Now, there may be times where he does empowerments for himself and for his graveyard, but he is not a tyrant over the dead. He works with and for the dead, and since he does that, they grant him boons, they grant him powers, they grant him gifts, they grant him access to things that most necromancers and others who work with the death current don't have access to. So that's one of the primary differences, is that a necromancer has access to deadly things, has access to things from graveyards. They can work the graveyard. They can do things in the graveyard. But they are not empowered by the dead of a graveyard. They don't know the names of the inhabitants. They don't know where things live. They don't know what's there unless they run into them. And usually, most necromancers are there for one or two dead in a graveyard and not for the entire graveyard. So it's a little bit different. So let's talk a little bit about that now. So a necromancer will go into any graveyard, Doesn't matter what graveyard do. Whatever they need to in whatever graveyard they want to. They get what they need, and they get out. That's usually the end of the exchange. There might be some residuals later on when they talk to the dead outside of it, but it's not the entire graveyard. So a Gravelord is, they do things a little bit differently. They have to find their graveyard. So let's talk about that. So, a Gravelord's graveyard is no casual thing. It is no chance thing. It is no random thing. A Gravelord's graveyard will create an invitation. And what I mean when I say an invitation is that what they will do is the dead of a graveyard will invite the Gravelord to their particular graveyard, and they do this by a feeling. So let's talk about that. So the Gravelord's graveyard will put out a welcoming feeling. If you are trying to walk the Gravelord's path, then you will notice the difference. There are graveyards that will put off hostile energy, or make you feel eerie, or make you feel scared, or make you feel unwelcome in any number of ways. Now granted, there are always going to be dead in any graveyard that do not like you, just like there is people in life. And no matter what you do, they will not like you. It doesn't matter. But the overall feeling in a Gravelord's graveyard will be a welcoming feeling. For instance, my first graveyard, it felt like a second home. It felt like some place that I would want to be there and stay there, and when I need to be there and when I want to go there, I would always be welcome there. It's a hard feeling to explain exactly, but it's definitely different. And it's only given to the one the dead want to be the Gravelord. So everyone else that goes with me to the graveyard, they don't have a welcoming feeling. They have a terrified feeling, a fearful feeling, a dreadful feeling, a terrified, scared feeling. They don't want to be there. They feel hostility from the dead. They feel anger and terror from the dead. But when I go, it's like being in my second home. And that's one of the ways that you can tell that that is the Gravelord graveyard. The graveyard for the Gravelord. the feeling. And it's very different. Now all this takes time. You have to find one that invites you. You have to declare your intentions. You have to say what you're trying to do and they will react. This is advanced work too. This is not something that you can just start up. If you haven't worked with the dead, if you haven't done any kind of sorcery, if you haven't done any kind of necromancy, if you haven't worked with spirits at all, you shouldn't do this. It's not for you. It's not the beginning path for anyone. This is advanced work on a high scale with a lot of power behind it. So we talked about the welcoming feeling. So once the Gravelord has got that invitation, then he has to go about understanding all the pieces of his graveyard. He has to understand the entrances, the exits. He has to understand if there's security, high security dogs, how much visibility is, how much light is there at night, how much light is there in the daytime, how many people visit the graveyard, is it abandoned? All these things are very important when a Gravelord is looking at a prospective graveyard. In addition to the dead observing him, never think for 1 second that when you get that invitation that you are not under observation, because you most certainly are. So, but when you find the one that's calling to you, when you find the one that's inviting you, then you'll get signs if they accept you. One of the things that my graveyard did for me when I was doing my gravelording work, and still am, of course, but my first graveyard was they would leave me gifts. They would leave things that were intentionally put in my path. And this is, of course, is carried on and carried over into my practices now, after I've done all the hard work of becoming an actual Gravelord. And that if I need anything, or if I need a particular something for either some kind of undead or some kind of ritual or some kind of something, that I will be led either by intuition or by whispers or by signs to a place to obtain the thing that I am seeking. And when I obtain it from the graveyard, it will be different than just any ordinary odd thing that I would pick up somewhere else, or something that I would even make for myself. It's already pre-enchanted, but we'll get into all the benefits of being a Gravelord a little bit later. So you get that invitation, then you know that this is the graveyard's way of welcoming you, of inviting you. And at this point, you have to accept the invitation if you're serious. If you're not, then you have to walk away from it. There's just no other way around it. You have to go all in when you get the invitation, or walk away if you're not serious. As I mentioned, gravelording work is not for beginners. It's not for those who want to stick their toe in the realm of the dead and walk away. That would be necromancy. Of course, necromancy can be very serious and become much, much more, but at the same time, gravelording is a little bit different. So note too that just as you are accepting invitation, should you accept the invitation and the welcoming of the graveyard, you are beginning your commitment. So let's talk about that. So when you are a gravelord, you are committing yourself to the graveyard that has given you the invitation. You are committing yourself 100% to that graveyard. It doesn't matter where you go, if you move away, whatever, they will always be able to call on you, and you must always answer the call if they call on you. That's the deal. So, another thing too is you will learn in time what exactly the dead of that graveyard want from you. What they want you to do, what they want you to help them with, what the problem is. Whether you have the strength at the time or not to do exactly what they want you to do, you have to plan, or you have to tell them what it is that you are going to do about their request. So, a clever gravelord will ask for empowerments and things to add to their arsenal so that they can achieve the goal and objective that the dead have placed before them. And of course, if it's unreasonable, then, the gravelord must also be good at bargaining. But let's talk about that definition again. So, a necromancer is one who goes into the realm of the dead. They go into the realm of the dead to use and have the different powers of the dead. A gravelord is chosen. A gravelord is picked and chosen and earns the respect and powers of the dead and the undead of a graveyard, and thereby becomes an ambassador. He becomes one that represents a graveyard or set of graveyards in his quest for power and apotheosis. So, this gravelord and this graveyard will get to know each other as time goes on. Once you've committed, you have to spend more time going to your graveyard. You have to spend more time going there, learning the dead, learning all the different places that all the different dead live, where they go, wandering dead, but also ones that are stuck in a certain place, ones that inhabit a certain place, a mausoleum, or a certain tomb. You have to learn where everything is in your graveyard. You have to learn your graveyard like the back of your hand. In the beginning, it's good to learn as much as you possibly can about the layout of your graveyard, because you will be in your graveyard alone on moonless nights with everything pitch black and just you and the dead. Remember too that the dead hate the living, so never forget that one rule. I know a lot of people think that the dead will be your friends. That could be true. That can be true. They can become your friends, but they are different than us, and sometimes they don't know the limitations, or they forget the limitations of your flesh. So you must always understand that even the best of intentions and the best intentioned dead can prove a danger to you if you are unwary. So, but let's continue on. So, once you get the invitation and you've committed to your graveyard, then you have to go and begin to show up. Now, one thing that will happen is the dead will naturally be curious about you, and not just the ones that you're going to go see, but the other ones that maybe you didn't notice, or they will all notice you. They will all come to you, and you will start to see them. You'll start to know their names. Obviously, again, this is not a beginner path. For some people, seeing skeleton figures or groaning spirits or zombies or seeing disfigured spirits, spirits that died in pain and agony, seeing undead spirits, all kinds of things. It can be very unnerving for them. Also, if you're weak or you don't feel like you can physically handle this, it's not the path for you. It's very strenuous on the mind, soul, and body. You're learning the ways of the dead and the undead, and also earning their respect. So it's a little bit more. So, when you're learning the ways of these, and you know their names, then you can begin to declare your intentions. And this is the time when you'll start receiving your most resistance from the ones who would try to stop you from becoming a Gravelord. It'll stop you from obtaining the power of the Gravelord. So this will take your other skills, your skills as a sorcerer, your skills as a necromancer, to subdue your opposition. So it is really a great work that is required. Not only do you have to learn your cemetery, You have to learn all the dead in your cemetery. You have to learn your opposition. You have to learn who is for you, which ones are for you, which ones are against you, all of it. And in a larger graveyard, there are a lot. You have to learn the signs of attack. You have to learn the signs of opposition. You have to learn. And if you have no experience working with spirits, if you have no experience working with the dead, you won't know the signs. If you're afraid, then they will do their best to harm you. If they scare you and you show fear, you're not going to have a good time. If you're there alone, the very fact that you're there alone is something that, of course, is required, and also it intrigues them because most people have no desire to reach the realm of the dead or be around the dead for any length of time, so that you keep coming around and they keep seeing you. They're learning you just like you're learning them. So it becomes intriguing. You can expect after the invitation for them to show up in other places, show up at work, show up at your house, show up in other places, and if they are from your graveyard or the graveyard that you're interested in, you cannot refuse them. You cannot banish them. You cannot tell them to go away. You can tell them that you're busy, but you cannot tell them to go away because you are becoming their Gravelord. It's very different. It's not a transactional arrangement, but a relationship you are shaping. A relationship you are shaping with the dead of that graveyard and yourself. And this leads to many, many greater things, which I will get into later. But for now, the takeaway from this is that there is a lot more to being a Gravelord than on the surface of a necromancer. I'm not saying that necromancers don't have a lot to do and that they can't learn a lot. They can't, but the relationship with the dead and the undead are very, very different. And their understanding, their deep understanding of a particular graveyard is very different. It's the difference between a man visiting a castle and a man who inherits a castle, who owns the castle, who knows all the servants, knows all the people who live in his castle, who knows everyone that lives there, and how they work and how they think and what their feelings are and what their reactions are. He knows all those things. It's very, very different for someone who would visiting, who would see maybe 5 minutes or even 3 days. It's a lifetime commitment to the graveyard that invites you. It's a lifetime commitment and an after-lifetime commitment, if you really think about it. Because the dead are already there. So, just a little bit to think about first on this first little piece of talking about Gravelording, and we'll get more into it on the second part. But until then, Ave Majira, Ave Caracas.